What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
My oh my, the second installment, Weili Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. There's a lot to digest here, including in the biggest piece of news is Joanna's retirement post-fight. But before we get into that, let's talk about the actual fight itself, because this was building to be another spectacular war between these two ladies, just like the first outing.
Yeah, if there's one thing we can say about this fight, it's that these two girls were made to fight each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, sometimes you have guys that they're like oil and water. They just don't mix. You just watch them fight. They could fight 10 times. It's going to be a snooze fest every time. These two are the complete opposite of that. You're going to get fireworks every single time. And for me, when you have a first fight that's as good as their first fight was, I mean, fight of the year candidate, just one of the craziest things we've ever seen in men or women's MMA, you know that the second installment's going to, fall as far as what we expect from, these two athletes and their performances. This sixth round was just as exciting as round 5 in their last fight. So I feel like this was a perfect matchup. Stylistically, they match up really well. Weili brings the power. Joanna brings the speed and showed us some actually really nice techniques from the bottom. She was able to work her way back up to her feet. I was really impressed with both of the girls. I was really impressed with how they were able to put on an epic show in the short amount of time that they fought. There's a lot to unpack here, so we'll have to do that. But I was just really, really happy to see, basically a perfect first round.
Yeah, it was basically like you said. It was literally like they picked up where they left off. It was almost as if 2 years hadn't gone by, and round 6 is just starting 1 minute after the 5th ended, because it looked just like the first fight. And let's face it, anybody in that division walks into that spinning back fist, they're probably ending up face down just like Joanna Jędrzejczyk did. And I think this is a good time for Joanna to retire. She's in her mid-30s now. She's still the queen of the strawweights, in my opinion. There was a time in early days of women's MMA where if you were a strawweight, you did everything you could to avoid fighting Joanna the champion, because she was just a savage. And it wasn't just like she was beating girls. She had this high-level striking. She was knocking girls out. She was scary. Her output was crazy. And then the division kind of did catch up to her a little bit. She had those 2 losses to Nama Yunus. She had that war with Weili. And the division is kind of moving on now, and she certainly could hang around and be a top 5 fighter, like a gatekeeper, maybe even sneak up and grab that belt one last time. But really, what's the point when you've had the kind of career that Joanna has? She let us into a little bit about what her personal plans are. She wants to be a mom. She wants to be a business owner. And, one of the luxuries that men have who fight is even champions as old as Glover Teixeira can retire and then start having kids in their late 40s, even into their 50s. Women don't have that luxury. So if you want to be a champion, or if you want to be a mom, rather, you do kind of have to call it a day in your early to mid 30s if you want to make that dream actually come to fruition.
Yeah, and hats off to Joanna. She gave us a perfect career, and she said, "I'm sorry if I let anybody down." Like, you didn't let a single person down.
Not a soul.
Yeah, you did it. You've climbed the highest mountain that you can possibly climb in MMA, and the fact that you were on the cusp of reaching the top of it once again, and you've basically stayed right there in the top of the mix the entire time you've been in the sport and since you got to the belt, speaks volumes of just how hard you've been working for years and years and years. I don't think we need to see anything else out of her. And a lot of times we don't know when that last fight is too many, but most fighters see it. And, the great Chael Sonnen always says, everybody realizes that this sport finishes with them. They don't get to choose when they finish with the sport, but the sport's done with them at some point. And I really like it when you see a Georges St. Pierre. Obviously we wished that he would have continued his win streak and all that, but it was cool to see him leave. It's basically just going against the grain, doing what other people don't do. When you watch somebody go and take just beating after beating, you're like, maybe we should just call it a career.
Yeah.
I tend to like the opposite effect, and sometimes there is something left on the table. Like, Joanna looked great. Some of the scrambles on the ground looked really good. Weili's clearly one of the greatest strawweights on the planet right now, and Joanna was more than hanging with her. It was a great fight, very competitive while it lasted. But what's the point in being one of those people that can't hang anymore and having to prove that, and then it just kind of looks like a sort of a sloppy finish to a career? Look, Joanna has nothing to hold her head about. She should be very proud of the careers that she had. She's going to be successful in the next thing that she moves into, whether that's purely motherhood, whether it's the 2 businesses that she runs. Apparently she wants to be a professional driver as well. I didn't know that she was into sports driving, but hey, whatever you're
Which,
into.
you know, that is much bigger in Europe than it is over here, so it makes sense.
Yeah, we got NASCAR, but they have all kinds of
Yeah.
Formula One and stuff. So if she wants to get that adrenaline rush that she's got from fighting, maybe driving does that for her. But I think she's got her hands full with plenty of other ventures outside of the octagon. She's done enough. She's a Hall of Famer for sure. And not only as a career as a champion, but some of her fights will go down as some of the greatest fights in MMA history, not just in women's realm.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. There's something almost mystical about leaving just a touch on the table. You know, just not giving us everything we wanted to see out of you and calling it a day. I mean, how many people have been begging for Khabib to come back, and that will always remain that way as long as he doesn't come back. Same thing with George St. Pierre, and I think one of the main reasons why BJ Penn never gets mentioned as one of the best lightweights of all time. I mean, think back to his body of work. My God. I mean, starting from winning the IBJJF World Championships at the black belt division 3 years after he started training jiu-jitsu. I mean, that is unheard of. And then to go and have the type of career he did in the UFC, only to end his career with a decade's worth of horrible fights, it really tarnished his reputation to a lot of people. Luckily, I remember BJ of old in the good old days, but I think there's something to be said, and I think you're seeing it more and more now. Fighters are concerned about their long-term brain health. They're concerned about, you know, their image as, you know, they don't want to be seen as this fighter who stayed around 2 years, 3 years, 4 years longer than they should have. They come out, they put on an epic performance. They're here for a good time, not a long time, so to speak. And I actually kind of like seeing that.
Yeah, I definitely do as well. And, you know, you said it earlier in the podcast that anybody would go down to that shot. She got caught. That was one of the things, you know, Weili wasn't really looking for that, but she wound up in a position where she could spin and make something happen. And really, it's the spinning back fist in that sort of scenario when you're in an exchange is really just to get the person away from you. You throw something spinning at them, they're going to usually move. Joanna was just too deep into the exchange, and she got caught with it. It wasn't even a fist. It was a forearm, spinning back forearm, which is the most brutal thing. Sometimes you'll see people break their arm even because it's such a hard shot. But Joanna got caught. I think that the sense of relief that you could see, literally the weight off of her shoulders after she was, you know, came to her senses and she was standing up on her feet, she just looked like, I've done everything I need to do. I'm going to move on. I'm happy with the position that I'm in right now. And there's nothing like being able to see that relief in somebody's face, in their demeanor, in their body language. And I saw it last night. I think that Joanna is really proud of herself. She knew she did everything she could to become the champion. She did more than most people on this planet will ever do as far as, you know, achieving their goals. And I think it's time to just move on to the next thing. And she will never be forgotten in the MMA community, but she can certainly go create big waves and footprint in the next realm of her life.
Whether it's being an entrepreneur, a race car driver, or a mom, I think whatever she's got next in store is going to be awesome.
Well said.
Thanks, guys, for watching this video. If you're new to the channel, we talk all things MMA combat sports here. If you haven't already, we appreciate a like on the video and a subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Peace.